Welcome back to day 5 of your 12 days and 12 ways to create calm, peace, and more safe connection, more loving connections over the holidays. I hope you have been enjoying my daily love missives and little tips and tools on how to do just that. And today what I want to look at with you is how to celebrate your progress. Remember, I always say inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard is hard. And I think it's so important to really anchor in and sit with celebration of active appreciation of just how far you've come, because oftentimes we forget where we were. We forget that we've done a lot on our healing journey, to come back to our hearts, to come back to a place of wholeness, especially if you are listening to this and you're an HSP or an empath, or you are on your journey of recovering from codependency or narcissistic abuse or any kind of trauma patterns for that matter. And I wanted to bring in the totem of the hedgehog today because there's a beautiful parable that's written called The Hedgehog Dilemma, and I did post it on the link to today's post if you want to read that. But I think Hedgehog, with all his little prickly spines and his sweet, endearing little face, it's a really good one to apply to interrelationship challenges that come up when all we really want, as a species, and actually we need it to survive, is safety, connection, and belonging. And I know that as a child, we had a trampoline pit at the back of our garden that sort of bordered onto the bushveld. And it became like part of my daily ritual after school to run home and go down into the trampoline pit, because inevitably there were, at least 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 little hedgehogs that had fallen into the pit. So I used to take them out and be very mindful of their little prickles. And I used to curl into a little bowl, and I'd take them inside and pull all the ticks off them and give them a little bowl of milk and watch with absolute excitement as they uncurled themselves, and that sweet little face would start drinking some of the milk, and I put them back in the bush, and off they go. So hedgehog medicine is wonderful if you are like so many of my clients, finding this time of the year is very sad for you, or that grief comes up, or that perhaps a sense of longing or belonging because our families are far away, or we've exiled ourselves in, that we all really are wanting to stay warm and connected to each other. But each time we do, in relationship, I know I say it often, but we are traumatized through relationship, and so the only way that we can heal is through relationship. And that's a little challenging if each time you do kind of open your heart and push down your barriers and your heart walls, you get pricked again. And I think for most people, any kind of relationship, intimate or otherwise, can feel like quite a bit of work, because the truth is it does take work. And even though we do long for connection, we often have challenges connecting with one another because of our past experiences of hurt or betrayal or broken trust. And we can manage these sort of missed opportunities of connections and the re-attempts as best we can, sometimes with success and probably many times with no success at all. And so I invite you to go and read that beautiful Hedgehog's Dilemma, that parable. It's really worth a read, because, as I said, it is this metaphor about human intimacy. And, breaking down those words, most of you know that I always love to follow the energy on words as a frequency to heal. Intimacy is into me see. So if your heart walls are up and you are in that, coping mechanism of defensive and protective patterns, we talked about this yesterday, in responding rather than in reaction when we're triggered. But I'm sure that and we've all had many long-term relationships, you can really appreciate the lessons of the parable, which really beautifully and really simply reminds us of our sort of inherent struggles that it can take to feel close to others, given our own inherent natures and differences. And while everyday relationship, even at its best, can often feel like these two little hedgehogs that are kind of attempting and reattempting to come close to each other for warmth and connection, and they get pricked by one another. And I think that this is a beautiful metaphor that really is a great way to illustrate in a better way the experience of someone who certainly has a complex relational trauma history in romantic relationship, but knowing too that how we do anything is how we do everything, and it affects and sort of filters into all the ways that we do right relationship. So again, I can't stress enough that we all want safety, connection, and belonging, and in fact, we cannot survive without it. You can't heal in a vacuum. And yes, it does take work to get it right. And yes, it's not always comfortable, because we know that when we get two people together with all their inherent temperamental and preferential differences, and you add in work and your money struggles and commutes and, waxing and waning libidos and aging bodies and sleep deprived minds and kids and mortgages and work stresses and student loans and debt to be paid off and seemingly endless laundry and dishes and grocery shopping on top of all of it, your relationships, as we know, are going to feel challenging. You're going to question and doubt why you're in it or what you're choosing. And again, think of the hedgehogs in the parable, because we try to move towards each other and we get pricked. Life can often sting, and it does drive us apart. And again, I stress that relationships in the best circumstances are going to be challenging. Life is a bed of roses, but we have to remember to celebrate our progress, to celebrate our differences, and to respond rather than react. So if you didn't listen to yesterday's love missive, go back and listen to day 4, because I know that relationships can feel hard, especially around the holidays, when we're throwing all sorts of very sometimes volatile characters into the mix. And if you have had relational trauma, and if you're part of my tribe, you have, it's going to be even more challenging, because complex relational trauma, whether this is a result of neglect or abandonment or abuse, whether that's verbal or emotional or physical, it's going to disrupt your sense of safety in relationship and often in the world early on in life. And with that lack of stability and trust in others and in the world, we are going to move forward with our lives as best as we can. But along the way, we most likely are going to get triggered by moments and interactions and threats, whether they're actual or perceived, in their frequency and intensity, that some people with non-traumatic pasts are not going to experience. So again, I think it's so important to meet your child parts, your scared parts, your triggered parts, with compassion, with kindness, with patience, especially over the holidays, and know that this experience of having a hyper or hypo aroused nervous system, of being wounded in your attachment early on in life, of developing layers and layers of defense mechanisms to cope with your painful experiences, and then being reactive from this is place. It's why I liken long-term relationships with a trauma history to those two little baby hedgehogs that are living inside a very cold environment and are longing for warmth and connection. So just know that, that hedgehog dilemma is going to play out in your relationships until you can really get the support that you need to go down to the root cause, or that original incident where you created the belief that you can't trust, that you can't get close, that you can't ask for what you want, and you certainly can't celebrate who you are or who you're becoming and how much progress that you've made. So just know that as you sort of go about it, that you might not always feel at home. If you're the rebel, the misfits, the HSP, the empath, you probably were the black sheep or the dark horse of your family. I know I certainly relate to that as well. And that we do get prickled and pricked. But to remember that, as you continue to deepen and widen your capacity, as your nervous system comes online, you're going to have more space for you to call in more of these opportunities from the people that you love the most and are often hurt by, to deepen into trusting yourself and others and life, and in that everything is working through you and for you through love, through this beautiful heart coherence field, so that you can fall in love and find your soulmate and create kind, generative, close connections with your children or your work colleagues or with whoever you are in conflict and relationship to. But, just know that if you don't break these deeply ingrained codependent habits, you're going to continue to sabotage your health and your happiness and all your relationships. And in doing that, you're going to neglect yourself in order to take care of others. That people-pleasing, very sort of anxious style of attachment is going to keep you doing more and giving more and actually resenting more, because you feel like who's got your back and who's there for you when you need help. And I think that that's a big one to really look at, is that when you lose your individuality trying to please others, you can't ask for what you need, and you often don't even know what you need or want, because you've spent your whole life meeting the needs of others in order to keep yourself safe and not be abandoned, especially by your primary caregivers and your family dynamics. So you're going to probably recognize that you've been obsessed. You have that obsessive compulsive addictive behavior patterning with other people and their problems, and you constantly worry about it. That rumination that we talked about yesterday. And I'd love to know in the comments if any of you are trying GABA as an amino acid to help you calm your nervous system down and keep yourself clear-headed and focused and aligned with your true north, or if you're using something else, please share what you're using that's working for you in the comments, because we're all here to learn and grow together. But just know that it's not your fault if you're afraid to say no or to set boundaries, and you're frustrated because you keep being taken advantage of, or being hurt, or being treated like a doormat. So you stuff down your feelings, and then sometimes you're exploding, and that hamster wheel, you can't get off that hamster wheel of feeling undeserving or unlovable or some way intrinsically flawed. No, it's not your fault. They're just codependent patterns, they're programming, and they're feelings that are deeply, deeply ingrained from childhood, sometimes in utero, sometimes you bring this in your karmic soul pattern from other lifetimes, and a lot of times it's developed in trauma from childhood. So you're going to be overly negative and inaccurate and unhelpful in those old patterns of protection, right? They're never limiting beliefs, they're just patterns of protection that you set up to keep yourself safe. So it might seem very natural because you've been thinking this way and acting this way for decades and unconsciously reinforcing these beliefs in an effort to keep yourself safe. But it doesn't have to be this way. So reach out and ask for support. You know where I am. If you want to work with me in a deeper way, reach out and ask me. I'm running a beautiful special at the moment for private sessions, and the people that have been calling and asking for those are getting great relief pre-Christmas, so that they can really forge us ahead in a new way and make 2020 and this next decade, because everything we're going to start creating from the new year is going to continue to amplify. So of course we want to change these old patterns and call in what we do want. So back to today's lesson. It's a really, really simple one. I really just invite you to witness your progress, your resilience, for staying the course, for constantly practicing, right? The tools and not giving up on yourself, and then also giving thanks, to see your progress, because the greatest fallback position is apathy, and your greatest challenge is going to be self-absorption if you're going to keep getting hooked back into that. So, you know, I promise you the world's not going to stop if you're not here. And intuition, gosh, sorry, there is some disturbance going on in this little busy house right now, so just excuse the background noise, but another pattern interrupt. But as I was saying, and I constantly say this, I've been saying it for years because this is so deeply ingrained in my mantra of empowering you to be your own medicine, to trust your intuition, your sixth sense. And you can't do that, for one, if you have a very weakened immune system, if you have a very weakened gut microbiome, you can't trust your gut. But intuition is the pathway to freedom from all of your programming and conditionings of separation. And we have to be fully inclusive of all these things, knowing who we are and knowing that it's not a fixed position, because as you evolve and grow, who you are is going to change with that. And it's constantly going to be changing as you get what you desire. So stop trying to get rid of a desire, because it never works, trying to suppress the soul urge. It's just going to create more frustration. So get very clear on knowing what you want, who you are and what you want. And just recognize the play of opposites in life, that it is ambiguous, it is duality. And it's only in understanding that we can evolve and grow and learn from our lessons. So see your progress today and celebrate it in that space of restful silence and hibernation. My nephew has just arrived from South Africa. So there's great excitement in this house as the children all start coming back home for Christmas, back to the roost, and bringing their own stuff with it. Anyway, so, you know, why do I want you to celebrate your progress? It kind of goes back to that negativity bias, you know, that we're very easy to judge ourselves. We're very easy to vilify ourselves. We're very quick to reject and deny the parts and pieces of ourselves that are calling out for help, that are literally starving for our own touch and our own attention. And, you know, there's always things that are going to get worse. For example, you know, over the past couple of years, you probably know someone who's been unemployed or ill or both, and there's more carbon in the atmosphere, inexorably heating up the planet, and the animals are in dire need of our help. As odd leaders, I'll just leave it at that, of countries are kind of, you know, killing species for the pleasure of killing, with no kind of conscious awareness to what the impact of that is. You know, we live what we learn, but we also learn by example. So, you know, if you don't recognize what's improving in your own life, then you're going to start feeling stagnant, and you go into entropy or atrophy or paralysis. And apathy sets in, right? And this is where we feel depressed and we feel anxious and we know something's missing, but we can't quite put our finger on it because we've kind of gone very far down the rabbit hole. And this can foster what researchers call, and I speak about this in depth in my other classes, called learned helplessness. You know, I see this a lot in working with horses who have been laid down, and, you know, to lie down a horse, for a horse to be on its back on the ground is instant death as far as its survival response goes. So, you know, this learned helplessness is what you see in animals in zoos, or animals that have been trained to do things that are not in their true nature for our human, you know, selfish pleasures. And it's a very dangerously slippery slope, because you can't. It's like being the elephant tethered with a tiny little stick since it was a baby. And as it grows and it becomes so strong and powerful, it doesn't recognize its own innate strength, its innate wisdom of its body to actually just pull that stake out of the ground. And this is the learned helplessness I see a lot, especially in South Africa, where so much apathy has sort of grown as a collective consciousness, that people have given up hope that they can create a better life for themselves, regardless of what corrupt government is doing. So just know that it typically takes only a few experiences of painful entrapment to create it, but many times, as many counter experiences in my work, I have seen there's lots of ways that you can not just undo it, but reset your nervous system and create safety in your own body so that you can go out there as a sovereign being and create the loving connections that you're wanting. So, circling back around to today's lesson, if you don't recognize whatever is getting better in the people around you, then you might feel more disappointed or despairing than you need to feel. And they might feel not seen or criticized, or, the learned helplessness of why bother, you don't listen anyway. Nothing ever changes. And I certainly have been there myself in my own intimate relationships that were far from intimate. It was like frigidity and separation in its worst type of narcissistic abuse. So, I know if you're feeling this way, I understand, I get it, but I want you to know that you can change it. And I think it's important to realize that if you don't see the positive trends in our world amidst the negative ones, as far as, we've just had a big election in England. It's finally ended to great relief, this whole Brexit stalemate that people have been on. And now these people can go ahead and change things. So we have to celebrate what is, as far as, is it improved medical care or access to information and less extreme poverty? Is it getting water to areas where animals are dying? The elephants in Zimbabwe are dying from the drought because they've had no rain. Celebrate the small things that are happening. Celebrate the small shifts, the things that are changing, even though you feel like, maybe recycling isn't doing enough. There's always the power of choice to do more, to try and make this world better. And this is not looking through rose-colored glasses. The whole point is to see life as it is, particularly your own life, including the progress that is occurring. Because, things are not always beautiful. They are brutal. We're living in brutal times. So make it brutiful. Just take some quiet time today, to review your year, your life, and what it is that you want, and what are the transformations that you've been going through that are leading you into a whole new heart-based way of creating your life and your business and resources. So spend some time, comment in the box below. I'd love to hear, what is it that you want, and how can I support you in having more of that? Because we've got our work cut out for us, but to keep going, we need to feel like we're making headway. And if you don't stop and have a gratitude or an appreciation ritual at the end or the beginning of every day, it's a beautiful way to celebrate your progress. So take heart, because zigging and zagging, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, slowly but surely, inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard is hard. But we can, and we are, and we will make our world a better place. So I'd love to know what you're going to commit to. What do you want? And how do you envision? What do you stand for that's greater than your own wants and needs? And how can honoring and celebrating your progress in this deepened space of self-love and self-inquiry create that beautiful ripple effect for others to be inspired to do the same? So that is my Super Sunday, day 5 of the 12-day challenge. If you like these, if you're enjoying them, if you're getting value out of them, please share it amongst your family, your community. because we can go so much further together than we can apart. And, I really appreciate you. I want to just welcome and thank all the new members that have been coming in over the last couple of days. It's an honor to serve. It's an honor to walk by your side, and it's an honor to learn and grow with you too. So thank you for being part of this beautiful tribe of love warriors. Let us know who you are, where you're from, and why you're here. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 6. We're at the halfway mark of this beautiful 12 gifts and 12 days of really deepening into actively living from a place of love and asking, what would love do here? So have a beautiful rest of your Sunday. All right. Bye, everyone.